Hi, I got a request to do a video about how you go about building tile sets for YuMe. Um, Now, one of the things, first of all, I'd like to apologize for the sound quality on this video. I've got a new audio interface and it doesn't seem to be being picked up by the screen capture software, so everything's going to be a bit echoey and I hope you can hear me okay. Um, so the person who contacted me about this, they asked me about Blender. Now, Blender's a fantastic package, but it's an incredibly full-featured package. And if you're new to 3D modeling, it can be incredibly daunting. It also has a very specific work methodology, like all software, that you kind of have to buy into. And particularly if you're coming from something like Unity, which feels a lot more like Maya, it can be a little bit tricky to pick up. So I recommended they take a look at Silo. And at the moment, at the time of recording this video, actually, Silo is on sale on the Steam store, 75% off. In the UK, that's £23, so I'm guessing about $30. It's well worth your investment. There is a free trial, 30-day trial, but obviously at this price, it's something I would recommend picking up if you're looking for a cheap and efficient modeler. So when you open up Silo, you probably get just this plain screen like this, very simple stripped down interface. At the side, we've got some actions we can perform. At the bottom, we've got a few things like move, rotate, scale, familiar stuff to Unity users. So it's a nice, clean interface, really easy to pick up, and everything's kind of within your reach. There is not as many tutorials online about how to use it, but there are some good ones. Okay, without going any further into all that, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the material editor. That's under Editor Options. And we're going to pick a texture. So if I go to wherever my Unity projects are, let's see if we can find YuME. I'm going to be using the default texture, which is in Uponic YuME textures, just so I can demonstrate some UV stuff. I'm also going to change the diffuse on this so that it's white. Okay, the next thing we want to open up, and we're going to be using this a lot, is a numerical editor. Again, if you're familiar with Unity, all of this stuff's going to be really familiar. Positions, rotations, scales, all of those kind of things. So let's start. Let's create a cube. Now there are options here we can take a look at. This is all defined by height, width, and depth of a cube and how many sections it has. One is a single poly per side. That's actually what we want to start with. So we're going to create a cube. Okay. Why is my zoom not working? Okay. I'm actually using the new beta of Silo, and I don't think I've imported all of my keyboard shortcuts, so bear with me. That might be a little bit slow. Right, so we've got a cube, and as you can see, it's kind of got the texture on it. It's got it on the top, got it on the bottom. It's got a stretched version of it down the sides. What we want to do is UV this, first of all, so we're going to use this as the basis for all of our tiles. So to open up the UV editor, really simple, press the right cursor key. It's also in Display, Viewport Layout, and it's the 3-view layout. And what we've got now is a 3D UV window. I'll explain that maybe a little bit more later. We might not actually even need to use this, but it's quite a useful tool when trying to UV complex objects. And we've got a 2D window here. Now our cube is being projected straight down onto this texture, which is why we've got the texture on the top and the texture on the bottom and not on the sides. So what we're going to do is, in object mode, this button here down the bottom, I'm going to click on this object, going to go to UV materials, and we're going to recreate the UVs using planar regions. Now what that's done is that's taken each face and just spread that across the UVs. You can see that it's changed the mapping on here, but it's not right for what we need. So let's go about fixing that. Now this might not be the best technique, but this is how I This is how I go about doing stuff. So what we want to do is change from object mode into face mode here. Make sure we're in the 2D UV window. In fact, what I might do is maximize that. I can hit the space bar, and that'll maximize that window. I'm just going to select each face, go to the position X and Y. UVs only use XY coordinates. I'm going to set all of these faces to 0, 0. So basically they're on top of each other. And the last one. Okay, so now if we hit spacebar again and go back to our scene, we see each face has the same mapping on it. But it's not where we need it. So we're going to go back to the 2D UV window. I'm going to use the middle mouse button as a click, and I'm going to drag, and that selects everything. In fact, there are different selection modes down here. I've got this on lasso, so I can actually draw around stuff, but it's probably better to have it on the rectangular select. So there we go, middle mouse button, click and drag over your poly faces, and we can put them in the middle of the texture we want, but it's still not right? You know, it's not scaled properly, and it's probably not even quite central if we look here. So let's fix this in the numerical editor. Now, to make sure I keep this selection, I'm going to hold down Shift and click in this window, and that keeps your selection. So UVs are measured from 0 to 1. So this is 0, 0, this is 1, 1, and this is 0, 1, I guess. So what we're looking at is these UVs should probably be at 0.25 and 0.75 to make them completely central. But also we need to scale them. Now we've already said that UVs are 0 to 1, and these are scaled at 0.32, blah, blah, blah. So let's quickly fix that. Let's size these UVs to 0.5 and 0.5. And then we get a cube which has got this first texture swab mapped all over the cube. Now, I'm just using the YuME prototype texture. You can be using any textures you want. You could have, you know, like 64 different smaller textures on a texture, and then you just have to adjust the scales and the positioning a little bit more. I'm doing it like this purely for simplicity's sake. But you know, use this texture, practice this way, and then, you know, expand your knowledge, expand your skills, using your own textures. So the cubes in the YuME prototype set, I use the yellow for the wall, and I have a different texture for the floors. Now, because you can walk on this cube and potentially you can see it from underneath, I'm going to change the UV coordinates of these two faces. So I've selected the top, I've selected the bottom, I'm holding down Shift, and I'm clicking in the 2D UV window. Now what I can do is simply move those over to 0.75, and now we've got a cube with the floor texture on the top, floor texture on the bottom, wall texture all around. So that's our first tile. I'm not going to get used to where this zoom is. So let's make another tile. Let's make a wall. So I'm going back into object mode, I'm selecting this tile. I'm going to copy, Control C, and I'm going to paste, Control V. And then what I'm going to do is in the numerical editor, I'm just going to move it across 1 in the X. So that means camera should be there. So to create a wall, what I want is half of this cube to be the floor and then the other half to be the wall. So what we need to do is actually add some more polygons to this cube. Now I'm going to select the edge tool here and click on an edge, and then I'm going to use a tool called the split loop. And what that does is cut this polygon all the way around and add more faces. You can actually slide this around if you wanted to reposition where that cut was, but we don't want to do that. When you see this circular dot, that means there's an option for the action that you've just done. We want to keep it there. I'm just going to hit enter. So now what we want to do is we want to think about how we're going to build this floor. So I could select this polygon and see what happens when I move it down, and we get a slope. We don't want that. We want to be able to move this face to the floor. So what we're going to do is use a tool called extrude. Before I do that, I'm going to throw away some of these faces that we don't need. We won't need this. We won't need this front. We won't need this old floor here. And now we've deleted those, we can also delete this polygon here. So what we're left with is what will be the back of our wall and what will be our floor. So let's click on that and let's use the extrude tool. Again, we get this circular manipulator, and what we can do is then holding down left click and moving, we can move this face and it will generate a new face. I don't know how best to describe that. You can see what's going on screen. So there's no snapping here. So what I'm going to do is just move it down, and then in the numerical editor, once I've hit enter to confirm that, we can see on the Y that it's minus 0.1, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to set that back to 0. So what you can see is we've now got a floor here, we've got a wall, and that butts up to this, this cube. But we've got a couple of issues. The first one is when you do an action like this, your vertices might not be snapped together because it's new geometry. So you can see there we've got a gap. So what I'm going to do is fix this first. Real simple. What I normally do is, there's a couple of different ways to do it. This is one way to do it. I pull the vertices apart, keeping the one I want to snap to where it should be. I click on the, where is it, merge tool, and simply click on the vertex you want to move and hold down the left mouse button and drag over to it, and that snaps those vertices together. We're done, so let's hit enter. And we can see now if we move that, that's all moving as one. Now let's fix the texture on this wall. So in face mode, select the face, and then what we're going to do is go back to our UV materials, recreate UVs using planar regions. And what that has done is taken this face and spread it across all of our UV space. So similar to what we were doing with the cube, we need to just quickly fix that. So again, hitting shift and selecting this window to keep our selection. I'm gonna scale all of these down. So there's a scale all option by 0.5. And then I'm going to move it into position. So it was 0.25 on the X and 0.75 on the Y. And now we have a wall with a floor piece. So let's keep going. Let's build one of our first corners. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to move it on the X to 2. So what we want to do here is we want a corner that goes around kind of an L shape here. So what we want to do is kind of get rid of this section of the wall, very similar to what we did before. So we're going to go into edge mode, select the edge, split loop, hit enter, and then again we're going to look at the polygons we don't need anymore. We're not going to be needing that, or the underneath. Let's just delete those. I'm going to select the face that we want to extrude down. Click on extrude, again, slide that down, hit enter to confirm. Over here on the Y, we're just going to zero that out. We're going to try a different way of merging these vertices. So middle mouse button kind of selects through. If I just drag like this, it'll only select the vertices you can see. It's kind of a ray cast, whereas if I use the middle mouse button and drag, I can make sure that I get all of those vertices, and these should be the ones that we're really focused on. But what we're going to do is just try and select those and hit merge, see if this works, and in theory, yeah, so that one is now attached to there, and this should be attached to there. Great. So we're going to do the same thing with this texture. We select the face, we're going to go to UV materials, recreate UVs using planar regions. Again, we've got a large, spread it across the UV space. I'm going to hit shift and left click to make sure it keeps selected. I'm going to scale everything by half. Now, if we move it to where all of the other UVs are, we'll see that it's actually in the middle because it's not a square. So, but actually we want it to be more like over here. So what I tend to do is move it roughly into place and then look at what the value here is and just round it down. So 0.5 plus 0.125 is 0.375. There we go. Finally, let's do the other corner. For this, I think I'll use the cube. I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste. I'm actually going to put it over there and then move it in the Z behind here so we can use it for reference. It's a good idea when you're building tile sets to use existing tiles as references, and this is one of the reasons why the YuME converter recenters everything when you import a file like this. So it looks at all the individual objects and recenters them, so you can actually build all your tiles in one scene without having all of your tiles set in the tool to 0, 0, or having them as separate files, which is kind of how you normally have to do it. And that was one of the reasons why I built the tool in the first place, is because this is how I like to build tile sets. So let's do the same thing for this, and let's create the L-shaped corner here. I'm going to click into vertex mode. I'm going to split loop. Yep. Going to do the same this side as well. Split loop, enter. We need to look again at the faces we don't need, so we're going to be bringing this down. So we don't need this, we don't need this, and we don't need the polygon underneath. Let's just delete those. I'm going to click on this polygon and we're going to use extrude one more time. Just bring it down roughly, hit enter, and then on the Y, just zero that out again. We should probably check our verts. Yeah, they're not where we need them. So let's do the same thing again. Let's like middle click and drag. Just select these vertices down at the bottom. Click on merge, and then they should be attached. And finally, let's select these two faces. So I'm shift clicking to select multiple faces. I don't think I mentioned that. UVs, recreate, using planar regions. Same deal, let's scale them all down 0.5. Whoop. Okay, so this is a common mistake I made. I've not actually selected the UV window, so just Control Z, Shift, click in the UV window, scale them all down 0.5, position them where we want them. And what we can see is actually it's not quite right. So actually they're flipped. We want this one to probably be over this side. Oh, do we? That's an interesting one. This is where UVs become a little bit of a puzzle, because in my mind that these two should be flipped. So I'm going to do that anyway. Let's flip them. So let's have a look at how we can do this best. It might just be quick to reposition them. So let's slide that one over there, get it roughly in place, and it will be 0.125. And then I'm just going to select this face here, shift click back in here, and put them roughly in place just so I get the number almost right. And there we go. That sort of makes sense, even though you got the double ones here. You have a double one somewhere. And that is the corner. So there we've got a very simple tile set. Actually, one more piece we could do real quick, because it demonstrates another area where there's potential problems. Let's copy this cube again, paste it, and then position it, say 3. We want to create a floor, just a simple polygon floor. So the easiest way to do that would be to delete these faces. But what we're going to get is a little bit of a problem with normals. So let me explain what normals are. If I click on this cube and I go to display, object display mode, show normals, you see it's got these spikes coming out of it. And what this does is this shows you the direction that the face is pointing at, if that makes sense. If this was reversed, because it's only single-sided polygons, it would look invisible. So let's say the normal on this face was not in this position. If we looked at it in Unity, we'd be able to see into this cube. Because even though the polygon's there, it's facing the wrong way, it's facing inside the cube. And if we look at this new object we've created here and we turn on show normals, we can see that actually the arrow is pointing down the same way it is on the bottom of this cube, which is perfect for this cube because you might want to see it from underneath, whereas actually we want to see this from the top. So let's fix that. With this object selected, what we can do is go to modify, reverse normals, and that's flipped the normal up, so it's now something that we would see looking down onto this tile. But also we've got our UVs are kind of also flipped. So let's have a look at a few ways of doing changes to that. Let's see, let's select that face, shift click select on here. Now there's a couple of ways I can think about doing this. Will this work if I scale -1? No, that's the wrong axis. You can actually negatively scale textures, sorry, UVs. And that doesn't affect the normals. So what I was doing there was I was basically taking this shape and scaling it in. Okay, well that's one way to do it. It's really hard for me to think about how to explain that properly. The other way to do it would have been simply to rotate the UVs until everything was aligned up. So now we've got a floor. So one other thing to consider before exporting into YuME is the naming of these things. So if we open up our editor windows, and I think it's scene editor, yeah. So let me just drag that up there. What we've got is, you see, everything is called cube. If we select that, cube, 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 we can rename these here. So we might want to call that, I think I call it something crazy like A00 block. This is to really order things, because the YuME editor orders things alphabetically. It kind of, I want a certain flow to the tiles, so all the primary tiles have a prefix of A, and then they're numbered after that. You don't have to do this, you can name them anything you want. So let's call this A01 wall, A02 corner. I call this an inverse corner. It's probably got a name, but and then we've got A03 just straight corner, and A04 floor. So now that we've named everything properly, that'll get imported into YuME just fine using those names. It'll recenter all of these objects on import so that they're all on 0, effectively, so they can be dropped in the editor from any position, and you don't have to worry about all of these tiles being in a single file. And obviously from here, these are just the basic principles of modeling, but you can extrapolate these and start, learning how to what we call box model, and just take these principles of cutting and extruding. And for example, let's try and make a more elaborate wall. What I'm going to do is let's split loop that, do it again, do it again. So now we've got a few more faces. Let's try extruding those out a little bit. Let's also do something like scale them down so it's a little bit like that. What else could we do? We could maybe just move this out. Oops, for some reason in Silo I have completely different shortcut keys from Unity, and sometimes that messes me up. W is set to extrude instead of move. So we've got a more kind of angled, sci-fi looking wall here. It's not brilliant, but it's something. And then it's just a question of UVing these things again. So let's see if this works. Let's select these faces and go to UV's material, recreate using planar regions. Let's move these all off to the side and deal with them one by one. What I'm going to do is, because there's not uniform scale, we're just going to do this by hand. I'm going to use the scale tool, scale these down roughly. Let's make that full screen with the space bar. Kind of line those up. Let's do the same thing with this. Scale. Whoa, I have all the polys selected. And then just position. Let's take a look. How does that look? Looks okay. With this new front, you could just same thing, recreate planar regions. Looks like it's rotated that. Well, why is it not letting me select all of them? So we can rotate, and I never can remember which axes to rotate these on, so whichever one I pick up will be the last one. So let's rotate them 90. Yep, wrong, undo. Y, 90, yeah, wrong, undo. So you'd think I'd learn. So what I did there was just rotate these UVs in space, so this is now all face, and I'm actually gonna scale these by 0.5 and put them where we've been putting everything else, but that doesn't look right at all, does it? I think that's really messed up. Let's try something else. UV materials recreate using LZCM, is it? LSCM unwrapping. What's that done? I feel like it's not playing ball, which is not great for a tutorial. So those are right. So there is I probably shouldn't do this because one, a cat's just jumped on the desk, and two, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but there is a way to stitch UVs, and I wish I knew how to do it. Move and sew. Okay, that seems to have done something. UVs, material, come on. Move and sew. Did that do it? These still don't seem right. Okay, let's keep doing this. Move and sew. Click on this one again. UVs are a pain, and there's just no getting around it, unfortunately. And that seems to have done it. We now need to rotate it. I'm going to go for Z first time. Great. I'm going to scale that all again, 0.5. 0.5, move it roughly into position. What we're probably going to find is the scale is a little bit off. I do apologize to my phone. I should have put that on silent. Because this is now actually it's got more distance. I can't even think of a word. I'm flailing now. I'm gonna stop in a minute. It's longer this way now than it is wider, basically. Oh my god, this is like the worst tutorial ever on modeling. But hopefully it's of some use to someone. So we just scale that out. In fact, we could probably just do that here. So let's go 0.5. and 0.5. And then hopefully it kind of looks okay. So that is a very quick, rough, slightly shambolic introduction to tile building in Silo and how you could start building tile sets for your game. I hope it's some use. I probably won't be doing too many more modeling tutorials. And yeah, hope it's been of use, and have a good day, everybody. Thank you.